Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mack Story.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So the title of today's episode is Choosing Your Response, How Self-Control Transforms Lives and Expands Options. So I'm continuing where we left off last week. I'm diving into some more content from chapter 5 in my book, Defining Influence. The subtitle of that book is what you need to know right here. Increasing your influence increases your options. That's what that book will help you do. That's what all of my books will help you do. That's what all of Ria's books will help you do. That's what anybody's book who's talking about character development, personal growth, leadership development based on character development, is going to help you do. So I want to share some content here from my life, like I always do, but I'm going to be talking about it in that context today, the context of how self-control transforms lives and expands options. It's all about choosing your response. So why would we trust someone without self-control? If you listen to last week's episode, you know that's where I ended up. I asked you to stop and think. Do you trust people with self-control more or less than you trust people without self-control? Which person has the most influence? Who would you rather work with? If you had to work with someone all day, would you rather work with somebody who couldn't control themselves or someone who could? And I ended last episode asking, which one are you? What would your friends say, your family say, your coworkers say, your boss say? Not what would you say, because you might not tell the truth. Just like I used to not tell myself the truth till I figured out what the truth was. I couldn't tell myself the truth if I didn't know the truth. There's a lot of other folks out there got the same problems I used to have. But why would we trust someone without self-control? We shouldn't. But a lot of people do. No one should trust someone without self-control based on their lack of control. Doesn't make sense when you start thinking about it. Why would I want to associate with and hang around someone who can't control themselves? They're not generating positive influence. They're generating negative influence. And if I'm hanging around them, guess what that means? I'm like them because, as I mentioned before, who we are is who we attract. So if I hang around, I got friends or family or coworkers I associate with, and they're always flying off the handle, losing their temper, getting mad, acting crazy, moaning, groaning, whining, complaining, all that sort of stuff. If I'm hearing a lot of that, it must mean I'm doing a lot of that, because that's the only reason I'd be associating with people who are doing that. I must value that, because I can tell you right now, the guy you listened to talking to you, Mack Story, I don't hang around people like that. I don't hear all that mess. I ain't got time for that mess. But I used to be a ringleader of that mess when I was younger. But if we trusted folks like that, if we hung around people like that, we wouldn't know what we were going to get or when we would get it. These people are unstable. I remember back in my early 20s, I didn't realize I was unstable, but I realized all the other people who were not, and I used to say that. That was a word I always said. I'd say so-and-so, they unstable. You don't ever know what you're going to get. And I didn't realize I was the exact copy of that. People never knew what they were going to get with me, because the littlest, tiniest thing that didn't make sense to someone else might just set me off. I go ballistic over nothing. So people wouldn't have a clue that that's what they were about to experience with me, because they didn't even realize there was anything to it. But I was so insecure, sensitive, all these things I'm not today. and I talk about and try to help other people. But I was so insecure that I'd get defensive over the smallest, little, tiniest things and just go ballistic. Today, I think about those things. I'm like, I was an idiot. I was an idiot hanging around idiots, looking for other idiots to hang around. I hope you better than me, and if you're not better than I'm talking about being, I hope and you striving to get better, and I assume you are. That's why you listen. So thank you. I'm proud of you. I appreciate you. Our world needs us to all get better. I will always be under construction, and if you understand what I'm talking about, so will you. But I used to be unstable until I heard Dr. Stephen R. Covey, author of The 7 Habits, say this on a 1-hour audio highlight that I had given to me in 2005, and I didn't listen to it to 2008. But when I did, changed my life. That's what happened in 2008, caused me to start reading every day. 17 years in a row, every day. As long as I'm alive, every day. Don't mean I read all day, but it means I read every day. But just the thing that happened was within just 5 or 10 minutes. And if you're a regular listener, you've heard me share this before, but I'm telling you, the good stuff, you can't hear it too much. And I know because, like I said, I read a lot. I hear a lot of the same stuff said in different ways by different people, but it's exactly the same. And guess what? I like it every single time. I need to reinforce it. I need to be reminded of it. That's why I share the good stuff with you guys over and over and over and over and over. You can't hear it enough. But this is what I heard him say. The most important principle out of 17 years of reading, listening to audios, watching videos, this is still my number one. And I got it within 5 or 10 minutes of the very first time I ever got exposed to this content. 17 years later, it's still standing strong. This is what I heard him say that day. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. We can use this space to choose our response. And I'm going to tell you, those words, Dr. Covey's words, changed my thinking, which allowed me to transform my life. It was not instant. It instantly stuck in my brain, but I didn't instantly master it. I had a lot of work to do. But I thought about it every time I got it wrong. I thought about it. Sometimes I didn't think about it till a few days after I got it wrong, but eventually I thought about it. But over time, I got where I thought about it sooner and sooner and sooner, and eventually I thought about it right after I did it. And then later I would think about it in the middle of doing it. And eventually I got where I could think about it before I did something stupid or said the wrong thing or behaved in the wrong way or made a bad decision. I got on the front side of it instead of living on the back side of it. First thing I had to do was be aware of it. But his words changed my thinking. And I tell people today, when you intentionally change your mind will automatically change your life. That's what happened to me. That's what I'm trying to help you do today. If you know people need to hear this podcast, share it with them. It's free. Say, hey, I got something out of this, thought you might. Or, hey, I discovered I had some issues I need to work on, and I want you to listen to it so you'll understand I realize I got some work to do. And that can be 100% the truth, but they also may realize they got some work to do. But when I heard those words, I'm going to say them to you again. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. We can use this space to choose our response. When I heard those words, I immediately started reflecting and couldn't believe how blind I had been. I was beginning to look back, to go forward. Remember, that's what last episode was about. The first half of this chapter, that's what it was about. And I had never considered that principle. Never had heard it. This was 2008. I was 39 years old. I had never heard that. And there probably has never been a day went by that I hadn't thought about that, because I have to think about it constantly to apply it in my life. I want to keep it top of mind. Between stimulus and response, I had the freedom to pause and choose my response. I think about it all the time. Basically without any effort these days. It's just a subconscious thought that just happens all the time. Sometimes I'm consciously aware of it, A lot of times it's just who I am now. But I had never considered that principle. But my life was about to change dramatically for the better after I heard it and discovered it. I had no idea the impact learning, applying, and beginning to live that principle would have on my life. It led me to write this book I'm talking to you about. And at the time, it was 6 years later. So it's pretty wild. I never thought I'd be writing books. Never thought I'd be helping people have a better life. But I have, and I did. But when I heard Dr. Covey's words, when I heard him say those words that day, back in 2008, my son Eric was 17. Today, he's 34. He just recently got married just a couple weeks ago. And he had never been married, doesn't have any kids. And his awesome new wife is never been married, never had any kids. They both waited till they found the right person. And I always knew she was going to be something special to be able to slow that boy down and get him to commit to a life with one person. I knew she was going to be special, and she's very special. So it's been awesome to watch him grow. But so he was 17 then when I heard those words. And our relationship had been nearly non-existent for the past 2 years at that time. From the time he was 15 to 17, had been pretty much non-existent relationship. And it stayed that way for another 2 years before I had done enough work on myself to regain influence with him. So from 15 to 19, basically a non-existent relationship. What little bit there was, it was meaningless. I didn't have any influence with him in a very important time in his life. I'm ashamed of that. I hate having to tell you that. I hate having to know that. But in the end, everything's turned out all right. But it probably could have been better. Definitely could have been better sooner. Had I known how to lead myself, had I been worried about someone besides myself. And at the same time, my relationship with my dad had been nearly non-existent for over 20 years. And needless to say, Dr. Covey had my attention. And I did some work, tried to rebuild a relationship with my dad. He didn't want to meet me in the middle, so I said, I'll see you later. I used to hate him. Today, I don't hate him. I just miss him. Wish he was in my life in a way that I would want him to be in my life, and he could be the kind of person I would want him to be, because I associate with character. It ain't got nothing to do with blood. Just because somebody's a family member does not cause me to want to be around them. And that's the case with my dad. I don't like who he is. I don't like his character. And it's his life. He gets to choose who he wants to be and how he wants to be. He's got a lot of the same problems I used to have. I overcame mine. He don't seem to care nothing about overcoming his. So that's fine. He can live his life. I'm going to live my life. But I was able to fix that with my son. And I'm very proud of that. And my son, I'm pretty sure when he has some kids, which won't be too far from now, we will have stopped the bleeding. I don't think he'll be a kind of dad that my dad was, still is, or the kind of dad that I was, but I overcome, because I was able to influence Eric to read a ton of these books. And he's read a lot more books than the ones I recommended. And he studied a whole lot of other stuff that I don't even know about, a lot of it, to help himself get better. But I fixed the problem that I had, me. That's capital M-E with an exclamation point. That was the problem I had. Now, you may have that very same problem. You, meaning if you're talking to yourself, you got to say me. I'm the problem. And that's a hard thing for people to do, especially if they're focused on themselves. And again, we all have a blind spot. It's all in the same spot. It's between me and the mirror. Your blind spot is between you and the mirror. And a lot of people ain't going to tell you what you need to hear. And even if they do, you may not listen. That's why reading is so important, or listening to podcasts like this. Because my whole intent in my books and on a podcast or on TikTok, since I'm doing that these days, or LinkedIn or Facebook or X, Instagram, wherever you might be following me. My mission is to provoke thought, raise awareness. And then hopefully you'll go do something with it like I did. That's what Dr. Covey did with me. He provoked thought, raised awareness. It made sense. I started making different choices and my life got better. But I fixed the problem, me. Those relationships, they've been mended. Eric and I are now very close. And at the time I wrote the book, this was 2014 when I wrote this book I'm talking to you about. I was talking to my dad more often. For so many years, I didn't talk to him at all. Then at the time I had written this book, I was talking to him, trying to rebuild the relationship. And after several years, he did some things and made some choices. And since the time that I wrote the book, I don't talk to him anymore. It's been quite a few years since I've spoken with him. I don't even remember the last time I've seen him. In a couple of years ago, saw him somewhere, but I don't even think I talked to him because I wasn't interested in talking to him. Just he gets to choose who he wants to be, and I choose who I want to be. And we're two completely different kind of people with two completely different missions in life. I don't hate him anymore. It's just the way it is. I'm gonna be all right. I'm sure he's gonna be all right. Doesn't make any difference to me. You choose your actions, and then you get the consequences of your actions. That's the way life works. We first make our choices, then our choices make us, good or bad. He might be miserable. I don't know, but he got some changes he can make. He ain't made them, so he's gonna live with his consequences. He's had a pretty rough life, and I'm sure it's still pretty rough. But Covey's words dramatically influenced my life. That's the one I got to worry about. That's the one I can do something about. My life, capital M-Y, my life. The principle of being able to choose my response to any stimulus was then and still is and always will be the foundation of my leadership journey. It could be yours too if you choose to make it that. Pause and choose your response. And you got to have some values. Instead of responding based on emotions, you got to respond based on values. So you got to internalize those values. That's a whole different set of lessons. But leadership principles are real and produce the desired results. If they don't, you're missing something somewhere else. Just like I just told you, pause and choose your response. But if you pause and choose your response based on emotions, you ain't going to get the desired results because you ain't in line with the right principle. You're in alignment with the wrong principle. You got half the principle right, pausing, choosing your response, but then you got the other part wrong, which is choosing a response based on emotions instead of values. There's so many principles that go together. It's like learning math, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, regular basic math, calculus, all the different things you can learn to do with math. There's a whole lot to it. And at the same time, there ain't that much to it. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you can't even get the right answer. You can't even accomplish and solve the problem, solve the math problem. But if you know, it's easy. Numbers and letters, that's all it is. There ain't that many numbers and there ain't that many letters. But it gets complicated in a hurry, right? So I hope something I'm sharing with you from the pages of Defining Influence today. I'm adding a whole lot in there. I'm reading over the chapter, but I'm reading some stuff direct, but I'm adding in a lot in between sentences and that sort of stuff. But I'm just basically expanding the book into a podcast episode. This 30-minute episode, if I actually read the part I'm reading from the book, is probably 5 minutes worth. So I'm adding about 25 minutes worth of content to it. Making it more real, more meaningful, sharing some of my personal stories and personal thoughts. But I hope something that I'm sharing inspires you to make some improvements in your life. That's why I do this. Professionally or personally, I don't care as long as your life gets better. My life literally improves daily as I continue my personal growth journey. When I read every day, I'm still on the journey. I'll always be under construction. And I'm ready to extend my influence beyond my current reach with hopes of helping others grow their leadership influence. So today, after I record this podcast, I got 2 different video calls. One of them's a big construction company. The other one is a big manufacturing company. Both of them, I'm speaking with upper level leaders who are interested in bringing me and Rhea in to help grow and develop their team, to help transform their culture, to enhance their culture, to help people work better together, to help their organization be more effective, more profitable. Because for those things to happen, people have to change how they think. Because the way they think now is getting them the results they got today. The values they have today has created the culture of their organization. So until they look in the mirror and change who they are as individuals, nothing's going to change. That's how it works. So, this book I'm talking to you about, Defining Influence, that's my first book again. I published it in 2014. And it's a big part of my journey, especially it was then, my first book. Never thought I'd write a book. It was a natural next step at that point. Since then, I've written a lot of books. Rhea and I together have 35 books today. But I was excited to write it, and I knew it'd help people get better results. I've had some people read this book and talk about how many times they've read it, and how much it's marked up and folded to pages, and they got a lot out of it. There's also people who've read it I probably never meet, never hear from them. But it helped them. But one thing to consider is the reaction of those around you as you grow. And make a mental note. Average people want to keep you average. Not because they're bad people, but because they want you to remain like them and with them. Sometimes those trying to hold you back are those closest to you, such as family, friends, coworkers, etc. It won't take long before you start to hear comments like these. And I used to hear them all the time. You never come around anymore. You think you're better than us. You think you think you're too smart to hang around with us. And this is what I say to tell them. I don't think I'm better than you. I'm not. It's like this. If you're heading to LA and I'm heading to New York, I'm not riding with you. Not because I'm better than you, not because I think I'm smarter than you, but because I'm going in a different direction than you. I can love you all the way to LA. Well, I'm headed to New York. Don't mean I'm riding with you. When you go in 2 different directions, you can't travel with people. You got to separate. So as you grow, you must leave some people behind. You've already left people behind. So don't think I'm saying this is a bad thing I'm saying you got to leave people behind. You've already done it. Probably many times in your life. If you start growing or you keep growing, there's going to be some more people you got to leave behind. They may not be going where you're going. They make their choices. You make yours. You may influence them to grow with you. If not, you cannot stay with them. Not if you're going to grow. If you grow, you grow. If you don't grow, you don't grow, and you stay where you are. You must move forward on your journey to get where it is you want to go, to become the person you want to be, a better person. Not for someone else, for yourself. Your life is going to get better when you get better. I always say, if you want to live a better life, become a better person. That's simple. Most people can relate because they've already left people behind in their lives to be where they are now. This must happen when growth happens. It's a natural consequence. You cannot and should not depend on others to motivate you. If you're depending on others to motivate you, you're already in trouble. Because most often, others won't motivate you. You're listening to this podcast because you're motivating yourself. That's really inspiration on the inside. That's kind of what motivation is in a way. It comes from the outside. Inspire means to breathe life into. But when you breathe life into something, it's living because of what's on the inside of it. So most often others won't motivate you, but you're listening today. That means you're motivating yourself. Unless somebody made you listen, then you got to look in the mirror and say, why do they have to make me listen? Why don't I want to listen on my own? Part of taking responsibility for yourself and leading yourself is motivating yourself. Nothing will motivate you more than finding your purpose. A lot of people think, oh, that sounds like fairy dust, wishful thinking, dreaming, daydream, whatever you want to call it. Finding your purpose begins with finding your passion. And this is what I say all the time. If you follow your passion, it will lead you to your purpose. But you got to follow it, whatever that is. So I want to ask you to stop and think right here. We ain't done with the episode just yet, but I want to throw this in here. Throughout the book, Defining Influence, I got a lot of paragraphs that have stop and think in bold text. And then there's something to think about. I'm trying to, whatever we just covered in the book, or this time it's on the podcast, I want you to make sure that I help you stop and think, because some people just keep going. They don't ever stop and think. They just read. Their goal is to turn the page in the book so they can finish the book. These kind of books ain't meant for that. It ain't about turning the page as fast as you can. It's about stopping, thinking, reflecting, getting the lesson, minding the lesson, marinating on it. Take your time. So stop and think about this right now. Who would you trust more to come through for you? Someone lazy and unable to get themselves going, unmotivated, or someone who is self-motivated? The answer is obvious. It's always obvious. When you're talking about trusting someone to come through for you, it ain't the lazy person who's unable to get themselves going. It's somebody who's self-motivated. Who's going to have the most influence in the workplace? Someone who's self-motivated. And now that key question, which one are you? Good chance you're self-motivated since you listen to this podcast, at least in this area of your life. But you may be unmotivated in other areas of your life. That's why you got to look at the social and emotional, the physical, spiritual, the mental, all the different aspects of being a human being. Just because you're self-motivated in one area doesn't mean you're self-motivated in every area. There may be people listening to this podcast who read all the time, study all the time, think all the time, but they got issues with the health because they don't exercise all the time, or they don't eat right all the time, or sometimes any of the time. We always got room to grow. Do yourself a favor as you listen, or if you get the book, or as you read the book, take time to reflect and ask yourself how you're doing on the principles you're learning about. I got a quote from Socrates to share with you from the book here. He says, the quality of a person's life will always be in direct proportion to the quality of questions that person is willing to ask themselves. Pretty powerful. I hope you reflect on the words from Socrates for a moment before continuing. You might want to hit rewind, listen to it again, pause. What questions are you asking yourself while you're listening? Have you even asked yourself a question this entire episode before I just brought it to the surface and provoked some thought? Have you hit pause while you've been listening and asked yourself some questions and thought about it? Are you reflecting on your thoughts and your choices? Having an experience does not automatically result in learning. If we want to learn from an experience, we must be intentional and reflect on and evaluate the experience in order to pull out the lessons. Apply the principle of reflection to learn from experiences, especially mistakes. Making this mistake is bad enough. Not learning from it is worse, because we will likely make it again. If we do not learn from our mistake, we simply had an experience, but we haven't gained experience. So I'm going to leave you with this, and we'll wrap it up. Reflection alone is not enough. In order to gain value from reflecting, we must take action and make changes. What matters most is not what we're thinking about changing, but what we are actually changing. Hope you had some nuggets to mind today. Hope you had have gained value from listening to today's podcast, thank you. And I hope you have a safe and happy new year. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mack Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mack's books, programs, special offers, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.